Hi, guys. I'm here with another Let's Talk lesson for you for this week. This week, we are talking about responsibility. And yesterday, we just kind of talked about what kinds of things go into being responsible. And remember, being responsible means being responsible for your actions, being responsible for your body, being responsible for your mind, and making sure that you're taking the responsibility. You are taking the blame for things that you know you may do wrong, being sure that if you make that choice, then you're also making the choice to have the consequence that goes along with that. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So I came across this quote that I thought was really, really, really appropriate for today. And it says, "You are free to choose, but you are not free from the consequence of your choice." And so I want us to think about that. You are free to choose. Okay, so I'm sure you've heard us say all the time, make responsible choices. It's your choice. You have a choice about the things that you do in life. Um, but your choice may very well come with consequences as well. So you also have to deal with the consequences of your choice. If you're making a choice to do the wrong thing, because it is your choice, whether or not you're doing the right or wrong thing. If you're making that choice, then you also have to deal with the punishment or the things that come along with that choice. If you're choosing to make a positive choice, if you are choosing to go down a path that's going to lead you to greater things, then your consequences are going to be great things. And consequences are usually thought of as bad things, but consequences are just the things that happen because of the choices that you make. So let's think about that again. You are free to choose, but you are not free from the consequence of your choice. You're free to make that choice, but you're going to have to deal with the consequences. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a couple of choices. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what you did, and I want you to think about what your consequence from that would be. Okay, so first scenario, you're in a classroom. It's very difficult for you to learn anyway. You're sitting in a room where people are kind of playing around. They're not really paying attention. The people beside you are talking to one another. The people behind you are talking to one another. And then your friend who's sitting in your group tries to distract you or trying to get you to look at whatever they're trying to show you. Maybe it's a toy. Maybe they're not on task. You make the choice to ignore that distraction. Think of your consequence for that. What would happen because you ignored that distraction? Would it be something positive? Would it be something negative? Think about it. So take a second. I know we can't be one-on-one, so I can't call on you to have you guys answer these questions, but think about it. What would be the consequence of ignoring a child who is trying to draw you away from your schoolwork? Okay, so let's talk. Would it be positive or would it be negative? I'm hoping that you're thinking to yourself it would be positive, because to me, if you are making the choice to ignore the distractions that are around you, if lessons come easy to you, if they come hard to you, either way, if you are making that effort to ignore the things that are going on around you, then you are going to keep your focus on your work. You are going to be doing the best job that you can do, which we know was one of the things we talked about yesterday. You are going to be focused, you're going to be determined, and in the end game, that's going to help with your knowledge, and that's going to help in your brain, and that's going to help you keep or retain all that information that you maybe wouldn't have gotten or you wouldn't have gotten done if you gave in to that temptation of that distraction. So hopefully you answered the same way I did. Ignoring that distraction is a great choice. If you didn't ignore it, you probably would be a little less knowledgeable on the things that you were working on. Okay? All right. The next one. Here's a choice. This is one that I really want you to think about. Next choice. You have a test and you studied for your test. You did the best job you can, or maybe you didn't study for the test because you just kind of felt like, I don't really need this. When am I going to use this math? When am I going to need to use multiplication in real life? We hear it all the time as teachers. When am I going to need to use this? So maybe you didn't study for your test, and the test comes, you have a really smart friend who sits next to you in class. Or sometimes I've seen it to where maybe you just have someone who sits next to you in class, and you decide that you are going to cheat on your test and take a peek at your friend's paper. Stop for a second. Think about that choice. Positive consequences or negative consequences. So let's think about that. This one's kind of hard because some of these consequences depend on what happens. So maybe you decide to cheat on your test and you don't get caught. And your positive consequence is that you get a great grade on your test that you didn't even have to study for. Think about it. Is that really helping you out in the long run? Because you didn't gain that knowledge that you needed to gain in order to be able to pass that test on your own. So if you think about this, you're free to choose, but not free from your consequence. Think about your consequence now. Now you live with the feeling that you know you didn't do it on your own. You live with the feeling that you know you cheated from your friend, and your friend probably wouldn't be happy. And you haven't done anything to better yourself in an area where maybe you're struggling to begin with. And so ultimately, although the consequence maybe wasn't something that somebody found out, you have to live now with the consequence of your actions. So, talking about the positive consequence, the negative consequence, what happens if you get caught? Somebody catches you cheating on the test, especially for some of you older guys, that's a big deal. And it can mean some pretty bad things. In elementary school, or maybe even the beginnings of middle school, if you're cheating on your test and we catch you, we're not going to let it go, right? We're probably going to call home. We are going to make you retake your test in most cases, which means that stinks. You've got to take it now twice, but we're certainly not just going to let it go. So you got some negative consequences there. And then kind of the same consequences that go along with the other ones. Ultimately, you never gained that knowledge that you needed to gain anyway. So hopefully you would have learned your lesson. All right, choice number 3. Choice number 3 kind of goes with cheating on a test, but this is something that I see all the time as a teacher when you're working in partners. Okay, so here's your choice. Here's your scenario. It's partner work. Maybe you're not the best in the area. Maybe you are the best in the area, reading, math, whatever you're working on, but you just don't feel like it. And so you're working with a partner, and your partner kind of does all the work and doesn't make you do anything. I see it in my class all the time because people want to be the first one done. So their partner wants to be the first one done and they just do all the work and make somebody copy off of them. I don't get it because they don't get anything for being the first one done. So copying someone's work, that's your choice. You've just made the choice to copy your partner's work rather than do it yourself and compare your answers. Think about your consequence here. Is it positive? Is it negative? Again, you could probably go either way. But let's think about that negative consequence. Did you do any work? Did you work your brain at all if all you're doing is copying off of your partner's work? Did you exercise your strategies and think about all of the things that you need to do in order to make sure that your brain is where it needs to be? I know this quarantine has taken me to where I feel like my brain is mush. So if you feel that way, the reason is because we're not exercising our brains. Your brains need to work out too. Your brains need to work out to stay healthy. So if we're not exercising our brains the way that we should, our brains are not going to retain the information that we need to. So you copying off of somebody else's work, even if you know how to do it, it just takes you a little bit longer, that's probably going to have a negative consequence on you because you are not going to be getting the information that you need. And your teacher's probably going to be upset with you because then I know what I do is I ask people, how did you come up with this answer? And if they just copied off of their friend, then obviously they didn't do anything to get that answer. So think about it. You can make the choice to copy, but then deal with the consequences. Don't get upset with your teacher or with your friend if you did something wrong. Don't get upset with your friend if they did something wrong and you got a bad grade. You made that choice. Okay, last one. This is another one that I want you all to think about. Completing your work, but doing it too quickly and messy. Okay? I have this all the time. Again, I have people who just want to get done and they don't go back and they don't reread the sentences that they write. Or maybe they're writing so quickly, I can't read it. And you want to know what's crazy? Half the time I call them up to read something to me and they can't read it. If you can't read your own handwriting because you're rushing and you're going quickly, how am I supposed to read your handwriting? So think about the consequence of untidy work or messy work, things that you did not take your time to go back and look over. I also have friends all the time that I'll say, did you double check your work? I'm nice enough to say in a test, did you double check before you turn it in? And I have several people that go, mm-hmm. And then I go through their test and they've missed questions or it's obvious they didn't read what it was asking. So think about all those things. Think about all those choices of not going back and rereading, not taking your time to write things in the right way, not going back and checking for spelling errors or corrections in your sentences that just, you know what your brain's trying to say, but you didn't write it down the right way. What would that consequence be? Positive or negative? Hopefully you're thinking to yourself that this would be a negative consequence. I know some of you guys might know, if you've ever had me in class, I would make you redo it. I would make you go back and I would say to you, if I can't read this, or if you can't read this, how can I read this? Go back, rewrite it. Here's another negative consequence. If it's papers that people have turned into me, you know, teachers have a lot on our hands. We don't always get things graded right away. If it's been a week before we've done this or since we've done this and I'm grading it, I'm just marking it wrong. If I can't read what it says, I'm marking it wrong. I have several people who they do multiple choice questions and they'll try to erase a wrong answer and circle the right answer, but they don't really erase the wrong answer. It's still there and I can't read what it says. If you circle more than one wrong, right, or more than one answer on a multiple choice question to me, I've said several times, multiple choice is only one. A lot of times you get it wrong, even if one of your answers was right, because your work is untidy. Your work isn't organized. It's not easy for me to go through and think about what your answer is. And then if I call you back up to tell me what your real answer is and it's been a week, it's probably going to be pretty difficult to figure out, right? So think about those choices and consequences. That was only 4. And that was only 4 that are pretty simple. Think about your responsibility to do the right thing. Choices and consequences. You are free to choose, but you are not free from the consequence of your choice. Make responsible choices, and you should be good to go. See you again tomorrow.